Hey YouTube, it's Penny. I'm recording this video on October 28th, 2013, and please forgive my voice. I've been sick the last week, and I apologize that I haven't been able to get a video up sooner. The Father has been showing me a lot of things that I believe tie together with the two previous videos I did. If you haven't already watched the October Crisis or the October Crisis Part 2, this is going to be Part 3, so it's not going to make a whole lot of sense if you don't watch Parts 1 and Part 2 first, so I encourage you to do that. I'm trying to figure out how to break this down into smaller videos, and because I've been sick and my brain's not working very well, I just haven't been able to figure out how to do that. So like Part 2, this may seem a little random. They're just puzzle pieces, and I may or may not be putting them together correctly, but I do believe that I at least need to be faithful to share what I'm being shown by the Father. So, okay, so here we go. On September 8th of 2013, I heard the words November settlement. I heard these words upon waking. And I believe that it's pointing to the same time frame that the Father has been showing me, having to do with the end of October and the beginning of November. On September 21st, I had a dream. I dreamt that I was in a car, and it was kind of like a limousine, and I was riding backwards, so I was facing an old friend of mine from high school. Her name is Susie Flippo, and that's significant. The Father uses people and places from my past to show me things. So this girl was talking about New Age ideas, and I was openly rebuking her, and I told her she should watch my videos. And I noticed that she was holding a bouquet of yellow calla lilies that looked like this. She held them up to the rear window, and I looked up at that point to see hundreds of these bouquets of calla lilies falling from the skies. Then large grapefruit started raining down from the skies as well. The scene changed, and I was walking in an alley behind a large grocery store, like when I used to work at Safeway in high school, where I discovered all these grapefruits had been piled up. I picked one up, and I realized that Safeway had thrown them out because they were rotten. So I think that this dream is pointing to the New Age doctrine that will be accompanied, that will accompany whatever is going to be falling from the sky. And I explain a little bit more about that in Part 1 with the whole Chicken Little and the sky is falling thing. It will be considered free fruit by the masses, who will run to devour it, pick it up like it's manna from heaven or something. But those who are in the Safeway, and he's shown me Safeway before, I had a dream where I said, I love Safeway.com. So those who are in the Safeway will know that this is rotten, will not pick it up. So I looked up calla lilies and the significance of them. The symbolic meaning is that they're both associated with weddings and funerals, and they have a trumpet-like shape. So I don't know if that's connected to, the trumpets, the 7 trumpets, or not. Similar to a woman's shape. And it says it's also the symbol of rebirth and resurrection. So that's why it's widely used at funeral arrangements and planted in cemeteries. So all of this stuff is going to start connecting in a second here. So on October 9th, I wrote down these words: there will be a distraction to take our eyes off whatever is incoming. On September 21st, I heard the word levitate, Level hyphen Tate. I know it's not a word, but it sounds like levitate, and it reminds me of the hover disc toys that my research assistant, and I'll just call her T, because I'll probably refer to her more than once in this video, And I had asked the Father last January to please send me someone to help me research my dreams and visions, and he sent me T. And at one point she sent me something and she said, hey, does this at all look like the hubcap toy that you saw in a dream last year? Because the Father had shown her a spiral, and when she was researching the spiral, she came across this. Okay, so you'll notice that this toy, which is called a hover disc, um, has both of the shape. I mean, it looks like a hubcap, the silver disc hubcaps that I saw in the dream, where I was in a football stadium, and I knew that this toy was being released in advance of the real thing. Kind of like, you might see a Princess Leia toy in a Happy Meal at McDonald's before Star Wars is released or something like that. And so the fact that I'm connecting it to this toy, this word levitate, I think this is part of the quote-unquote real thing that's gonna be following the release of this toy. And I tried to do some research on this thing called the hover disc toy to figure out when it was released, and I couldn't figure it out. But if you can, post a comment. Okay, September 24th, I saw a woman who was celebrating her divorce. She was sitting on a couch with pillows on her lap. This was not in a home environment. It was more like a casual restaurant where they would have comfortable seating. Her wine glass was leaning, like it was resting on one of the pillows on her lap, and it looked like it was about to spill red wine all over her. And someone said something to warn her, and she quickly flipped the glass in the other direction, and everyone gasped, thinking that this wine, was going to spew everywhere. But instead of wine, it was a thick, rubbery substance that stretched out of the glass and then came back into it. It was a trick glass, and everyone thought it would make a great April Fool's gag, but I knew that it was Halloween. Okay, so here's another reference to April Fool's, which is kind of like that dream that I had, the All Screams Day, where Rudy thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't. And so there's several images in this dream: a divorced woman, red wine, trick, trick or treat, as well as Halloween and April Fool's Day. So it also occurred to me that the newly divorced woman flipped her glass, which may be why one of the reasons I was shown Susie Filippo in a previous dream. It could also be that Alba keeps showing me the flip side, because he keeps showing me that there's dualism in everything, good versus evil. Okay, so on September 24th, I dreamt something about a house where I was going up the stairs at the same time a young woman was coming down. And as we passed, there was this strange feeling, like I was being pressed against the wall while being levitated up the stairs by some sort of a force. I could hear screaming coming from other places in the house, but I wasn't afraid, even though it seemed like the house was haunted. And when I woke up, I realized, this is another Halloween type of dream, and it's also another dream where there's screaming. Okay, on September 29th, I saw the words, I don't know, free in dirt. So free hyphen in hyphen dirt, D-I-R-T. And I didn't know what it meant, fell back to sleep, and I had a vision of JFK. So this is the second time I've seen JFK. If you haven't seen my video, A Conspiracy of Fire Will Surround Them, I recommend that you watch that. So in this vision, I couldn't, when I woke up, I couldn't remember what he said. And so I asked the Father if he would please show it to me again. And he did. I had a subsequent vision of a hand coming up out of the ground. And I heard a man's voice, when it was JFK, say, "Whoa, I think we ought to go." Like, get out of here. And when I looked up for images on the internet for a picture of a hand coming up out of the ground to show you what I saw, the first images were clearly associated with Halloween, um, like this one. But as I continued to search, this is really more what I saw. They looked more like this hand looked more like tree branches. Okay, so the other thing that was fascinating to me that I found when I was, looking, a hand coming up out of the dirt or ground were images like this. So this hand is part of a huge sculpture by an artist named Seward Johnson. He's actually part of the Johnson & Johnson family. And this sculpture is called The Awakening. And here's what it says about it. Depicting the arousing of a bearded giant with a head, hand, outstretched arm, bent knee, and foot, arranged to suggest that the giant is breaking free from the earth. And I thought, oh, like free in dirt. And it's interesting because it was actually moved from its original place to it's near the Jefferson Memorial now in Washington, D.C. And this is interesting too. This gentleman, when I was looking at his artwork online, he also did this huge oversized sculpture of the American Gothic couple, which I mentioned in part 2. Interestingly, this work is called God Bless America. Okay, so on September 24th, I had this very long involved dream. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but in it, David said that he was hiding from the Sandinistas. And when I sent this dream to T for her help, she wrote back and said, is the Father showing us sand? Because she's convinced that the stuff that I was shown last year was actually a countdown to not only Hurricane Sandy, but also Sandy Hook, which a lot of us believe was a false flag event. And so when she said, is he showing us sand again by, the word Sandinistas, I wrote back and I said, to answer your question, does this have to do with the word sand in Scripture? Yes. So previous to her asking me that question, on September 30th, I woke up to the number 285, and it was like it was being sung to me over and over again. So I looked it up in Strong's that morning, and it didn't make sense to me. But when she asked me, is he showing us sand in Scripture? I was like, yes. So number 285 is AMMOS. Here it is. So it's sand, sandy ground. So at the time, I thought to myself, okay, this, what's the Sandman about? And started thinking about the fact that that song is about waking up with, you know how when you wake up and you feel like you have sand in your eyes? If you're trying to wake up, it's like, I can't wake up, I get that grainy feeling, or is it just me? That happens to me. But the song Mr. Sandman is about wanting to go to sleep, but we're being told to wake up, to stay alert, to stay awake. And when Yahusha healed the blind man, he took the dirt and he breathed into it, and some scriptures say, he spit or it was his saliva or whatever, but he breathed into that dirt, and that's what he put on the gentleman's eyes. And I looked up, or actually I asked T to look up, what does it mean, here's to mud in your eye. And it's a reference to that that miracle performed by the Messiah. So this giant awakening statue could be seen, two different ways. Dualism again. He could be seen as both rising out of the sand, or he could be seen as sinking into the sand. So it all depends on your perspective. And it's interesting that it's called the awakening, because that word has been used by the New Age movement. Okay, keep going here. On September 30th, I heard the words, "Get her with a dirty bomb. It's time to go now." And upon waking, this is what I saw. Okay, so dirty bomb, there's that word dirt again. The interesting thing is that I wrote down the word zephyr based on what I was shown, but when I went to look that word up, I realized that what I saw was called a zeppelin, Zeppelin, but I wrote zephyr, so I was like, okay, why did I write zephyr? So I looked it up. Zephyr is the Greek god of the west wind. And it's interesting because this name Zephyr has been used for lots of different things. Trains, cars, kites, which is reminiscent of the JFK dream that I had. And it's also been used for, there's a Cyclone class patrol coastal ship in the US Navy called the Zephyr, and it's one of 13 ships that are part of the Cyclone class, and they all have like weather kinds of names. And it was on loan at the time of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig fire. It was on loan at that point to the Coast Guard, and it was actually the first cutter deployed to respond to that catastrophe, which some people also think was a false flag, especially if you've ever seen the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage. You'll know what I mean. Well, and now it's back. It's no longer with the Coast Guard, it's back with the Navy. And I looked it up, and it's actually stationed, the commanding officer, the address is Pascagoula, Mississippi. Okay, that struck me because one of the first words that I heard when I first started to receive, dreams and visions and words from Yahweh was alert, access on the Strunk. And I was so confused, and the only thing I could find was something called the Strunk Center, which is located in Pascagoula, Mississippi, near New Orleans. So the reason that I think that this could be connected is, and I'll put a link in the description box. In fact, I think I have it as one of my favorite videos. I can't remember, but I'll link it for you. Someone sent me, after one of the videos I uploaded, she sent me a link to this video and said, oh my goodness, take a look at all of the, catastrophes that have happened in the United States, like going back to the Oklahoma City bombing. And this person had done a video showing these different access lines and how they were all connected, and there's one line left to be connected. And maybe I talked about this in part 2, I can't remember, please forgive me. Anyway, and it goes basically through New Orleans, or this Pascagoula area, and if that's the case, then alert access on the Strunk. I mean, here's one more thing, this Zephyr Navy ship that's located there. Okay. It's also the name of a military unmanned aerial vehicle, otherwise known as a drone. And I heard that word on September 21st. So I'm not exactly sure why I was shown Zephyr, but it's interesting because the Zephyr now is being shown to me as both something from the sea, like a submarine, and something from the sky, like a blimp or a zeppelin. Okay, so on September 30th, I dreamt that I was in a public facility taking a shower. It was like the YMCA, and I entered a stall, and anyway, I was still fully dressed. In fact, it's interesting because I was actually wearing like full military combat uniform. The light suddenly dimmed, and an employee, a young man, walked in, entered the room, and announced that the power had gone out, and the emergency lighting that had come on, that's why it was dim, was going to go out in about 10 minutes. So everyone needed to leave the facility, otherwise it was going to be too dark for us to find a way out. And I asked him if an EMP had caused the power outage, and he'd been instructed by his superiors not to tell us, and he was reluctant, but I pressed him, and he finally admitted that yes, it was an EMP that had caused this power outage. Okay, The scene transitioned to the lobby area where everybody was now gathering and talking about the power outage, and I was kept trying to say something to the group, and I kept getting interrupted over and over again. Finally, I stood up on the table and I raised my voice enough so that I could get everyone's attention, and I said, if anyone asks why weren't we warned this was going to happen, the answer is that you have been warned and warned and warned by the prophets. I've been warning you for 1 year and 9 months now, and nobody will listen to me. So, the scene then transitioned again, and I saw a rich woman in a hallway outside her room or apartment. I'm not sure which, but it was a high-rise building. And the voice on the PA system was saying the emergency lights were timed to go out sequentially, beginning with the top floor. So top down. I understood that the rich people who were occupying the top floors with the best views, like in the penthouse suites, were the ones who were going to feel the full effects of the power outage first. Okay, I wrote this down on October 2nd. I wrote, last night, David and I were discussing all of the signs that are pointing to something happening in October, and he popped off with, yeah, the hunt for Red October. Just came to him. Well, I believe it was the spirit, because the morning of October 2nd, so the very next morning, I received a news update on my cell phone from Fox News, I believe, that Tom Clancy had died the night before at age 66. So I believe that the Ruach put those words in David's mouth and that they were prophetic. Okay, so The Hunt for Red October is a book about a Soviet nuclear submarine. A submarine has a periscope, so it reminded me of a dream. Incidentally, a dream that I heard the very same night that I heard, this was February 11th of 2012, when I had the dream that I was doing a cheer with one of my, squad members from college, and the words to this cheer were, shout it out with a battle cry, victory 30Y. I'm going to connect that to you at the end of the video here. So that night I also had a dream where I saw a man looking at an old black skeleton key like this. He handed it to me, and I looked through the top of it as though looking through a keyhole like this. On the other side, I saw another key, just like the first one, only it was upside down, like this. And I also saw a periscope, like this, and what I thought at the time was a king piece from a chess game. However, the next morning when I drew what I saw, David said, no, that's not the king, that's the rook, or the castle piece, like this. And sure enough, I looked at my notes from the night before, and I had written in the middle of the night the word castle. Okay, so a rook is borrowed from Persian or Sanskrit. And when I was going back and looking at this, it's like, okay, it pinged with me, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But in Sanskrit, the word means chariot. And formerly the piece was called the castle. Okay, so I looked to see if there was any kind of a connection to nuclear submarines and chariots, and this is what I found. Chariots were British manned torpedoes deployed during World War II, on which 2 frogmen rode into action after launching them from a submarine. Then they attached an explosive charge beneath an enemy ship and returned to the submarine. Okay, I looked to see if there was a connection between Florida, since the Lord seems to be pointing me to Florida, as I explained in part 2. To see if there's a connection between that and the word castle. And I found something called Coral Castle. And this guy spent over 28 years building Coral Castle, refusing to allow anyone to view him while he worked. A few teenagers claimed to have witnessed his work, reporting that he had caused these huge blocks of coral to move like hydrogen balloons, which pinged, obviously, because I've been shown the whole thing with the Hindenburg being a hydrogen balloon initially, and ended up being later a helium used for the lifting gas. Okay, so Coral Castle is located north of Homestead, Florida, and Homestead pinged with me because I knew that there was an Air Force base, and it's a reserve base, but at the time I lived in Florida, I believe it was active duty base, and it pinged because on August 14th, I dreamt that I was calling baseboards, like that go along the floor, I was calling them coasts, and I woke with an understanding that it was some sort of a play on word about coast, or military seaboard military bases on the coasts. Well, it's interesting because as I looked at Florida, Homestead's not the only one. It's got seaboard bases all the way around it. And the thing that's interesting about the fact that this thing was called Coral Castle is that I've actually heard that word twice. I had a dream where I saw somebody with yellow eyes, and they started to turn coral, and both of those obviously very unnatural colors. And I woke up and thought, okay, coral. It was very specific. It wasn't peach, or it was coral. And then also on December 27th of 2012, I dreamt that I was bleeding, but it was like nail polish, and it was coral. It was coral nail polish. So this is like the third time now that I'm like seeing coral. Okay. Another connection to Miami and Florida is that on a recent Tribulation Now radio show, Augusto Perez, and I think he's been on Steve Coyle's show and several others. He was saying that Yahuwah told him over and over recently, warn my people, warn my people. And he was like, Abba, I have been warning your people. But he gave him call letters for a radio station, and he looked those up, and they were call letters to a radio station in Miami. So I was like, oh, there's Miami again. So the thing that's interesting is that Steve Quayle was mentioning on the Hagman and Hagman radio show that the area where they're expecting an asteroid to hit is near Puerto Rico, which is in a very deep trench near the Bermuda Triangle. And both Miami and Puerto Rico are on, what's being called this Columbia disaster access line that runs from Oklahoma City through the New Orleans area down to Miami and then potentially on to Puerto Rico. So he could be pointing us to both Miami, Florida, and Puerto Rico. On October 14th, I had a vision of some ancient-looking writing that I didn't recognize, and I asked the Lord, is it Sanskrit? And he said, yes. But I called it Sanskrit, because that's how I thought it was spelled. Once again, showing my ignorance. Well, I looked it up, and it's Sanskrit, and when I was doing a word search on that, that's when I found that thing about the castle being connected to the Sanskrit word for chariot. Okay, so anyway, this is what it similar to what I saw in the vision. And I was asking him, are you pointing me to sand, or does this have something to do with Hinduism or Buddhism? I wasn't sure, but on October 2nd, I had a dream that all I could remember when I woke up was the message was in the dirt. And I think that there's dual meaning to this again, good and evil, good and evil. It reminds me of when the adulteress, the woman caught in adultery, Yahusha, they were getting ready to stone her, and he bent down, and it said that he wrote something in the dirt. So I believe it has something to do with adultery, and if you haven't seen my video, Wormwood, the Adultery Test, I recommend that you watch that, because he keeps showing me the harlot over and over again, and how he's calling her back to himself, like the story of Hosea and Gomer. Well, Um, okay, so I wasn't sure what that was about, but fast forward now to October 17th, so a couple weeks later, just before waking, I had a vision of Courtney Cox. Only I wrote down Courtney Fox. I keep being shown Fox all over and over again. It's a repeat for me. And the vision that I saw, it was like a split screen of her. It was like a before and after shot. On the left-hand side of the screen, she was sitting in a chair, looking in a handheld mirror without hair or makeup or anything, and you could see every flaw. It was like they were just magnified. And on the right-hand side of the screen was a close-up of her face where she had been like airbrushed to look really flawless. And when I was looking for pictures of Courtney Cox, I found this. It was actually a split shot, almost exactly like what I was shown in the vision. So the next morning, when I was writing this down, I realized that, okay, here's another actor from the show Friends. Like when I was shown the character Joey, and I talk about that in the Trampling the Law um, vision. I think that might even be the name of the video. So the fact that I wrote her name down as Courtney Fox made me think of, Fox and Friends. Um, okay, I never watched television, but at the time, the day that I got that vision, I was actually, David and I were staying at a hotel, and so I thought, okay, I'm gonna turn on Fox News and just kind of see if there's anything that I'm supposed to be paying attention here to. And it was weird because there was this promo for an upcoming special called Francis, the Pope from the New World. So here's a New World reference again. And I had previously heard watch for the virgin fox. And we typically think of a virgin as a female, but I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are Catholic, I'm pretty sure that the Pope is a virgin, or expected to be a virgin. So watch for the virgin fox. So it could be this fox from the New World. It could be a reference to the Pope. And I had received the word onerous, and I wasn't sure what that was, and I looked it up, and it's talking about a heavy burden. It's like being the bearer of bad news and how that's a heavy burden. It's onerous. And it reminded me of that vision that I had early on, I think February of 2012, of the popes dropping dead because they were carrying a huge Torah scroll. So they're the ones who have been teaching us that the law is a heavy burden. So I don't know how all these puzzle pieces fit together, and if you're ready to, turn me off at this point, who could blame you? But if you don't mind, hang in there with me. So the Courtney Cox thing, I was also, as I was looking for her, I saw this picture. Okay, the word dirt is coming out of her mouth, which reminded me of the messages in the dirt. Well, the flip side of the idea that Yahushua was writing a message in the dirt, and it had to do with this woman being forgiven of her sins and told to go and sin no more. This show that Courtney Cox starred in is about a tabloid magazine. That cover when they say they got the dirt on someone, like the scoop. Well, the interesting thing about tabloid magazines is that they've been proclaiming the message of alien encounters for decades. And for the most part, people just walk by those in the grocery store and think, yeah, whoever who buys these things. But that could also be what Yahuwah is pointing us to, is the fact that these dirt rag magazines have been proclaiming this message, and this is whatever is incoming. It is not what pop culture would have you believe. In fact, I saw recently a study shows that more people believe in aliens than believe in God, as in like the creator of the universe, God, whom I call Yahuwah. They're not what we've been taught. They're demonic entities. They're fallen angels. So, and I'm warning you about that. I've been warning you for a long time. Okay, so speaking of incoming, on October 4th, I heard the word incoming, and it's not the first time I've heard this word. I heard it on August 16th of 2012, where I was at a baseball game, so here again is in their stadium, and somebody was throwing the ball in from the outfield, where it shouldn't have been coming from anyway, and someone yelled incoming. And then on August 20th of 2012, I heard incoming planetary object. Okay, so and so then now I'm hearing it again. So the Father's reminding me, Penny, incoming. That same morning that I heard incoming, I had a dream where someone asked me how I like where I'm living now, and I said that I liked it because it was slower the pace. And upon waking from this dream, I heard the words, lower the key. Okay, slower the pace, lower the key. So I thought, okay, is this about Key West? Because it's the lowest of the Florida Keys, where the pace of life there is slow. Also note there is a Navy base located in Key West. Okay, moving on. October 11th, I had a dream about Germany and France, and I woke up to a vision of a gray submarine. Okay, so, and it looked very similar to that Zephyr that I saw, almost exactly, like long, narrow, gray. The next night, I had a vision, so this is October 12th, of a Chinese holy man, that's what I wrote down, with the Great Wall of China behind him and a swastika in the lower corner. And I tried to do a depiction to show you what I saw. It looked like this. And I didn't understand why I was seeing, the swastika associated with basically, like what I would consider to be like a false religion, Chinese religion. And so when I looked online for images of the swastika, I found this. So it says, what does the Buddhist swastika mean? And it's one of the oldest and most profound symbols, dating back to 563 BC. The word swastika derives from Sanskrit, and it means well-being, good fortune. And they show it on Buddha's chest, and it has to do with boundless morality, virtue, that type of thing. And it says the swastika's rotational orientation encompasses the dynamics of the universe. Okay, this is weird, creepy stuff. And that could be why I, saw, Germany and France, because I've always, and the whole submarine thing, I've always associated the swastika with, Germany. But this is saying that it goes back all the way to, it's over 2,500 years ago. So, puzzle pieces again. I don't have the whole picture yet. Okay, so that same night, October 12th, I dreamt that I was in a room with Obama. I've been shown him many times now. And he was getting ready to hold a private meeting, but he didn't want to talk in front of me. So he sent this woman over to help me pack my suitcase. And I remember packing an orange nightgown. So here's orange, again, like orange and black. And later, I had a dream of needing to get ready for a game, and I was trying to find my cheerleading uniform. It was a football game, so here's a football game again, in the color orange, and Obama in a suitcase. Okay, on October 13th, which was actually my birthday, my 50th birthday, I'm in my Jubilee year now, then the Father showed me many, many things about my birthday. So anyway, I heard the words grand finale, and I also wrote down the word fireworks under this, and I wasn't sure what it meant. And a few days later, I was watching a video clip that someone had sent me from that movie V for Vendetta, because it ties in with this whole anonymous thing, and the Guy Fawkes mass, and remember the 5th of November and all of that. And there's in this clip, there's actually there's a scene of a grand finale at the end of the movie that includes fireworks. So I think the Father is actually showing me, this is another thing that he's pointing to, Guy Fawkes and remember the 5th of November. Okay, that same night, that was the night, by the way, I heard Watch for the Virgin Fox. So October 13th, uh, I I was in a dream, and I was taken high above a football stadium, and I was trying to make out the image or the formation that the marching band was making on the field. When I woke up, I couldn't remember what it was, but it was interesting because it occurred to me that the viewpoint of this dream was similar to that of an airplane or a blimp, and that I fell back asleep that night after having that vision, and I had another vision of a TV commercial for Goodyear tires, and they were rolling across the screen from left to right like this. And I saw a sales price tag of $99. I don't know if that's significant, on one of them. And my eyes were especially drawn to the hubcaps, like this, which looks very much like that hover disc, that silver disc toy that I saw. I mean, check this out. Okay, fell back asleep, so it's still October 13th, and I had a vision of Alicia Keys. So here's the word keys again, Florida Keys. And I looked up Alicia Keys because I wanted to know, like, are you just showing me the word keys again, or is it about, hers or a connection of football or anything? Well, sure enough, she sang the national anthem at this past Super Bowl in New Orleans. So here's New Orleans again, that Columbia line. Here's football again. And in the images that I saw when I was looking for a picture of her, she's using Illuminati hand signs like this. On October 14th, I had a vision of a spiral. So it was very similar to that hover disk image that T said that she saw in a vision. So the Father was showing me the same thing. On October 15th, I had a vision. I had it twice, actually. And the first time I didn't write it down. When I had it the second time, I was like, okay, got it. 3 sets of women rowing in boats, and I understood they were like university students, so it was like this. The 3 boats were coming from different directions on the same river, from the north, the west, and the south, and they were converging under a bridge where all 3 branches of the water came together, and as they did, they all crashed and fell into the water. Okay, when I woke up, this reminded me of, I've linked to this guy. It's an audio of a gentleman named Brian, a prophetic guy. The Lord had shown him the stock market collapse of 2008. And in this audio, and I'll try to find the link and connect it for you in the description box, excuse me, he is explaining that his daughter Matea, very young girl, had a dream of 3 airplanes crashing into a vessel of water, and her father was given the interpretation that the next stock market crash will be 3 times worse. That's what the 3 airplanes signified, 3 times worse than the stock market crash of 2008. Okay, that same night, October 15th, I heard the words, "Love found a way to break through the barrier of terror and pain." And so that's, David and I were, at the hotel, and that morning I went down to, they had a complimentary breakfast in the hotel, and after sitting down, I looked over, my shoulder to see what was on the television, and the first thing that I saw was a headline covering most of the screen that read, "Pain in the Forecast." I was like, what? I had just heard this word about terror and pain. So it was a promo for a story about how the weather can cause joint pain, but I had just finished telling David about this word that I'd received about the barrier of terror and pain. Okay, so that same morning, I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning after dreaming that I was trying to wake up, and the clock said, when I finally woke up, the clock said it was 10:30 a.m. But then I woke up for real and it was 5 a.m. So, the whole thing made me wonder if the Father was trying to say that 10:30 is time to wake up, which, going back to Susie Flippo, when I shared that dream with T about the, the stuff falling from the sky, the grapefruit, the calla lilies, she said that what came to her was, "Wake up, little Susie, wake up." And I've previously been shown "Wake Up, Christina," having to do with Christians, time for Christians to wake up. which I'm going to fast forward for a second here. On October 25th, I heard the words, Christie is in the crosshairs. Don't think it's about Governor Christie. I think it's about Christians being in the crosshairs. The same night, October 15th, I had a vision of several small photos that I was supposed to choose from, like you would choose from a selection of preset pictures for an avatar or a screensaver or something like that. And as I was looking at them, I heard David say, I like this one. Okay, it was a picture of Snow White with light shining down on her as she was getting on a boat at night, like at midnight, like this. And I woke up thinking, what? David likes Snow White? But then I realized that it's a picture of Yeshua telling his bride that it's time to get on the boat or in the ark. Okay, so this was the same thing about time to wake up at 10:30. So, or October 30th, maybe, I don't know. And again, is all of this year? Or is he pointing us to a year in the future, or years in the future? I don't know. The next night, October 16th, I heard someone say, it's the fastest thing on TV. And then someone else replied, it's the only thing on TV. So when I woke up, I thought, oh, fastest thing. JFK said, what's the fastest, best breeze you can blow in the sky? And it totally reminded me of September 11th, when, after that happened, it was the only thing on TV. Not just that day, but for days. On October 18th, I had a dream twice before I wrote this person's name down. And then in the third dream, it picked up right where the previous two dreams left off. So it was about somebody named Anatoly, and this person had 2 maps. And I wrote down that there was a slight alteration to one of the maps. Well, in the third dream, I understood that they weren't actually maps, but they were more like keys, as in like the key at the bottom of a map. And I can't remember a large part of the third dream, but it ended with me discovering a hidden message when playing a record backward. And the word was extraterrestrial. Upon waking, I thought about that Gravity movie that David and I had seen, where it references the spacewalking record held by cosmonaut Anatoly Soloyev. I'm not sure how to say his name. But the weird thing is, I actually wrote down Anatoly Slobinsky. I have no idea what Slobinsky means or why I wrote that down. But when I was looking up the record this Russian Anatoly Soloyev guy holds, I found this fascinating. He was awarded something called the Order of the October Revolution. So I was like, well, what's the October Revolution? Again, I have to admit my ignorance of history. When I looked that up, it's officially known as the Great October Socialist Revolution, commonly referred to as the October Uprising, the Bolshevik Revolution, or Red October. Remember, David said the hunt for Red October. So there's something about, I don't know, draw your own conclusions. Okay, moving on. October 21st, I had a dream that my mother tripped off the back of our deck and did a somersault as she tumbled to the ground. And I asked the father for confirmation because I wasn't sure if he was showing me, like, and I usually call her mom, so it was weird that I, in this dream, was calling her mother, that she was tumbling, and I was asking, is this about a somersault, a flip-flop, is the earth tumbling, is it a mother ship, like, why am I calling her mother earth? Anyway, here's what he gave me. When I fell back to sleep, I heard the words, I wouldn't have expected that kind of fallout. Okay, so whatever is going to tumble will be unexpected, and there's going to be fallout. Now, fallout is, interestingly enough, the name of a series of post-apocalyptic role-playing video games. But we commonly, I think, most of us think of nuclear fallout, which is simply known as fallout. It's also known as black rain. So here's rain again. See, um, I talked in previous videos about how I was shown a little boy in a football uniform with blood raining down on him. But when I was typing the word tumbled, when I was typing this dream up, I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember this dream. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever shared this dream. This was back on March 23rd. I dreamt that I was escorted by a man down an aisle or a lane. It wasn't David, although he was with me. He was walking with me. He was on my right side. And I was holding a Barbie doll in my arm, like you would a bouquet of roses. And I got to the end of this lane or aisle or whatever, and I threw the Barbie on the ground. And I turned around and I attempted to do a tumbling pass down what was now like a gymnastics mat. But as much as I tried to, get some air or whatever to do this tumbling pass, like a gymnast, it was as though gravity, so here's that word gravity again, was pulling me to the ground. And I tried again, the same thing happened. And I went to David and I said, mark it down, March 23rd, my tumbling days are over. And I said it twice. So at the time, the whole thing about me throwing this Barbie doll, I thought it was maybe about the harlot being thrown down, and it may very well be. And I thought that maybe I represented an asteroid or something that was being pulled to the ground by gravity. And I actually found a JPL article, NASA article, entitled Tumbling Asteroids. They do tumble, but I'm not sure if that's what I was being shown. But okay, here's the interesting thing. When I went to look for a photograph to show you of a woman carrying roses in her arms, the first thing I thought about, was like, okay, like at a beauty contest, and then it hit me, the Miss Universe pageant. Okay, not only does the winner carry roses, but all the contestants get Barbie dolls made to look like them. I didn't know that until I started looking at the Miss Universe pageant and in association with Barbie dolls. Okay, so this hit me because I had just watched a video about the fact that the current Miss Israel is an Ethiopian immigrant who made Aliyah with her grandparents back when she was 12 years old. Okay, and she's not going to go to the Miss World competition because it's being held in Indonesia, which is a Muslim country. So Miss Israel is actually going to be competing in the Miss Universe competition. And I'm going to try to link to a video in the description box where somebody's kind of showing the significance of this. But when I looked at to see like when is the Miss Universe contest being held, I mean, this was when I got this tumbling dream. This was on October 21st. Wow. The contestants were actually, at that point, October 20th to the 24th, they were arriving. It's being held in Moscow. There's another Russian connection. And the preliminary competition is, remember, it's on the 5th of November. And the final telecast is on November 9th, 11/9, which is the flippo of 9/11. Okay, on October 24th, I heard, and I wasn't gonna share the whole sentence with you, but I feel like I'm supposed to. I heard it will happen a year after the Sennacherib event on October 31st. Okay, so I don't know what it means, it will happen. But here's October 31st again, undeniable. And I was like, okay, Sennacherib, who's Sennacherib? And I thought, it's in the Bible, right? Well, it is. The night, I mean, to me, the Sennacherib event would be referring to the night that the angel of the Lord slew 180, I think, thousand men in one night. So it was a nighttime event. But I was looking, as I was looking on Wikipedia, Sennacherib is also mentioned in a science fiction novel, The War of the Worlds, which caught my eye because T had just sent me something about the War of the Worlds. No, I had sent her this, and she, at the same time I was sending her this, she was sending me something about the War of the Worlds. So the Lord was pointing us to the War of the Worlds at the same time, which is interesting. So in chapter 8 of this book, it says, I believed that the destruction of Sennacherib had been repeated, that God had repented, that the angel of death had slain them in the night. So that's H.G. Wells, The War of the Worlds. Well, The Night That Panicked America is an American made-for-television movie that was originally broadcast on ABC on October 31st. I have no idea. 1975. The movie dramatizes events surrounding Orson Welles' famous and infamous War of the Worlds radio broadcast, based on the novel of the same name. So the radio broadcast was originally of October 30th, so there's 10:30 again, in 1938, which had led some Americans to believe that an invasion of Martians was occurring in New Jersey, which is where Hurricane Sandy came around. Okay. Someone sent me this. When I was looking at this, I discovered that National Geographic is airing a world premiere movie event called American Blackout. And it's on. I'm recording this, like I said, on the 28th. This started last night, October 27th, and goes through, remember the 5th of November. And it's chronicling what would happen after 10 days without electricity as a result of a cyber attack. Remember, that group Anonymous is known for cyber attacks. The tagline is, forget my voice, I'm so sorry, learn what it means to be powerless. And the trailer for this movie Sennacherib event, says it could happen, it will happen. Okay, the line that I heard was, it will happen a year after the Sennacherib event on October 31st. So if something does happen on October 31st this year, then I think he's pointing us to something else happening around the same time frame, like happened last year with Hurricane Sandy and Sandy Hook. Something around the end of October, beginning of November will happen next year, and it will be similar to the War of the Worlds invasion, and maybe that's why the Lord's pointing us to this whole incoming thing. Then on October 25th, I heard the words, "Ladies and gentlemen, stand by." So it reminded me of, please stand by, like when there's a national emergency or something. And it similarly reminded me of this picture that T found when she was doing research on the emergency broadcast system. This, what I'm going to show you, used to be used for the emergency broadcast system, which is now called the emergency alert system. But I want you to take a look at the number in the middle. Shouted out with a battle cry, "Victory 30Y." Why is there a number 30 in the middle of this? I was told a long time ago the Indian helper in their midst, and there's a picture of an Indian on this. What in the world does this have to do with? I was told 30 and Pacific. I don't know why there's a 30 in the middle of this and what it has to do with the emergency broadcast system, the emergency alert system, and standing by. I don't know. The last thing I'm going to bring you, oh gosh, there's so much more. This morning, October 28th, I had a dream. I was with my son and his friends, and they wanted to stop for ice cream. So again, the Father's showing me ice cream. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. And when they came back to the car, I was showing them my new cell phone, but it was really tiny, and it looked like what some people would call a tchotchke. And I thought, ignorance again, I thought you spelled tchotchke like CHOTSKEY, but when I looked it up, it's spelled TCHOTCHKE. And this is what I found. It's actually a Jewish word for bimbo, harlot, slut. So again, I'm being shown a picture of the harlot being thrown down, connected to key, tchotchke. A couple of just quickies. Florida, it sounds very much like fleur-de-lis. Somebody had sent me, and I haven't even looked at this file that T sent me yesterday with all the connections between France and Paris and the fleur-de-lis and what it all signifies. But someone had sent me something about, on my birthday, the Seattle Seahawks were playing the Saints, the New New Orleans Saints. Sorry, it's getting late. And the father had shown them some stuff and was pointing them to that game. And I watched that game because I was at my parents' house on my birthday and it was on. And from Seattle, of course, and so the game was on television. And I was actually directed by the father to pay attention to the commercials. That's a subject for another video. But the father showed this person that the Saints logo is, it's the fleur de lis. And you know how he's shown me Trojan horse, Trojan helmet? I'm gonna put a picture for you of that logo, and tell me if you can see the two Trojan horses facing one another in this logo. But she felt like the spirit had alerted her to that. And the Goodyear blimp that's located in Florida, down by Miami, is called the Mayflower. And in part 2, I was more drawn to the fact that there's this other one called the Columbia. But I thought I should look at the Mayflower. Well, the Mayflower ship, first landed at Cape Cod on November 11, so 11/11 of 1620. And I had received a word a long time ago, away from the Cape. I don't know if it's connected or not, but the Mayflower brought people to the New World, which is what they're saying Pope Francis is from, the New World. So the pilgrim ship, the Mayflower, has a famous place in American history as a symbol of early European colonization of the future United States. So I'm just wondering if there's some connection between the fact that this Goodyear blimp, and the Lord keeps pointing me to Goodyear, and the Goodyear blimp has something to do with the next phase of colonization of the future of the United States. So I'm going to wrap it up by saying, September 11th was a wake-up call. Whatever this next event is, this Sennacherib event that will occur on October 31st, I hope it's not this year. I hope it's not. It's another wake-up call. Wake up, Christina. Wake up, Christy. Wake up, Christians. Will America wake up? Will we repent this time? Not just for a couple of days, where we all join together and sing God Bless America. But will we actually truly repent and turn from our wicked ways? It's only then that he will hear from heaven and heal our land. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, our Lord God, King of the universe.